So, if you live here in the Tri Cities, you've probably kicked around the idea of hiring an interior designer and then immediately wondered, okay, but what does that actually cost? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain and give you a straight up, no nonsense guide to understanding that investment. Let's dive in.
First things first, we've got to shift how we think about this whole thing. This quote really hits the nail on the head. Professional design isn't just some fancy extra expense. It's a foundational investment in how your home works, how it feels, and yeah, what it's worth. It's about how you live in that space day in and day out. And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's one thing to talk about value and investment, but you need to know the actual numbers. So let's get right into the specifics of what that looks like. To really get a handle on the cost, you have to start with this one core idea. This isn't just about picking out pretty pillows or a new paint color. It's about engineering a space that is literally built for your life.
You know, a professional designer really thinks more like an engineer. They're looking at things like traffic flow, how you move through a room, and how to squeeze every last bit of utility out of every square foot. They make sure the design works with your home's bones, not against them. We're talking about function and harmony, and that's what really bumps up your home's value and just makes your life better. Okay, so how do designers actually charge for all this expertise? Well, it's not as simple as one flat rate. There are a few common ways they structure their fees, so let's break down the pricing models you're most likely to see. You're almost certainly going to run into one of these four. Each one is really designed for different kinds of projects, and knowing how they work is absolutely key to figuring out what's right for your needs and your wallet. First up, we've got the most straightforward model, the good old hourly rate. Simple. You pay for the designer's time, minute by minute, whether they're drafting plans, on-site with a contractor, or shopping for tile. This is pretty much perfect for smaller jobs, or if you just need an expert to pop in at a few critical moments to make sure you're not going off the rails. And what are those rates? Well, right here in the Johnson City and Kingsport area, you can expect to see a range somewhere between $75 and $200 an hour. Now, a designer who's newer to the game might be on that lower end, but a seasoned pro with a whole network of trusted contractors, they're going to command a higher rate, and for good reason.
Next up is the flat fee model, and it's exactly what it sounds like. One single fixed price for the entire design project. The huge advantage here, you know exactly what you're paying from day one. For those big, scary projects like a total kitchen renovation or a new construction, this gives you that cost certainty you need to sleep at night. Now, for the really big jobs where the designer is basically your project manager, you'll often see a percentage model. Their fee is just a slice of the total project cost. That means everything from the lumber to the labor. It really ties their success to the overall success of the project. And here's a visual of what that looks like. The design fees usually make up about 10 to 25% of the total project. So you can see the designer has a real vested interest in making sure that other 75 to 90% is spent wisely and effectively. And finally, there's what's called the cost-plus model. See, designers can get things at special trade-only prices. So they buy furnishings at a discount, and their fee is a pre-agreed markup on that cost, usually somewhere between 20 and 40%. The most important thing here is transparency. That markup has to be spelled out clear as day in your contract. Okay, so we've got the models down. But within those models, what are the things that are actually going to make that final price tag go up or down? Let's take a quick look. It pretty much boils down to these four things. First, the scope and scale. Are we talking about a quick color consultation for your living room in Bristol or redesigning an entire new build home in Johnson City? Big difference. Then there's the designer's experience. Next, complexity. Are we just picking out a sofa or are we moving walls and designing custom built-ins? And finally, how much project management do you need? Do you just want the plans or do you want them to handle every single phone call until the last piece of art is hung? All of that plays into the final cost. All right, let's get into the stuff you're really wondering about. We're going to do a quick rapid-fire round of the most common questions homeowners have about all this. This is it, the big one, the question everyone wants to know right out of the gate. How much should I actually set aside just for the designer's services? A really good rule of thumb is to plan for 10 to 25% of your total project budget to go towards the design fees. So let's say you have a $100,000 renovation budget. You should expect that about $10,000 to $25,000 of that will go to the expert who's going to make sure the rest of your money is spent perfectly. Oh man, this is such a crucial distinction, and a lot of people get it wrong. And getting it wrong can be a really costly mistake, especially if you're planning on any kind of structural work. So here's the deal.
A designer works with the science of a space. They understand building codes, they can read blueprints, they handle structural changes. A decorator, on the other hand, focuses on the surface, the aesthetics, the paint, the furniture, the accessories. Here's the bottom line. If you're moving walls, you need a designer. It really is that simple.
Another big concern is always about cash flow. Nobody wants to write one massive check on day one for a huge project, so it's totally normal to wonder how those payments are structured. And the answer is a very clear no. That's just not how it works. The standard practice is an initial retainer to get the ball rolling, and then you'll make payments as you hit specific project milestones, like when the design plans are finalized. And of course, all of this will be laid out in painstaking detail in your contract, so there are absolutely no surprises. So we've talked about the costs, the models, the big questions. Now let's wrap up with how to make sure your project is a huge success. It really comes down to just a few key principles for a great relationship between you and your designer. Think of these as your 3 pillars. 1. Be crystal clear about what you want, what you need, and what you absolutely won't compromise on. 2. Be brutally honest about your budget from the very first conversation. A good designer can work with any realistic number, but they can't work with a mystery number. And 3, a professional contract is not optional. It's the blueprint that protects you and the designer. At the end of the day, that's what this is all about. Your home is probably your biggest asset. Understanding these costs isn't about spending money, it's about investing it wisely to unlock your home's full potential. So, the only real question left to ask yourself is, are you ready to do that?